Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of the DFW New Homeowner Podcast. Megan and I are here today. We have a special guest, Gene. He is a sales counselor for Highland. We're going to talk all about his products and all the cool things that they've got going on in their communities. But overall, just kind of give you some more insight into what it's like to buy a home. Again, the goal is to be a resource anywhere we can to help you and your family get into a home here in DFW. So Megan, I'll let you kick it off with Gene. Let's put him on the hot seat and let's just go for it.
Yeah. Okay, Gene. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your current community that you're selling in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are right now in the Sonoma Verde community, my team and I, and that is in Rockwall County and McLennan Chisholm City, just outside of Rockwall and Heath area, south of 30 on 205. You're about 5 minutes away from downtown Rockwall itself. Our overall tax rate is going to be on a 60-foot lot of 1.85 with the PIT included. And then on a 70-foot lot, it's going to be 1.9. And then your HOA is going to be about $852 per year. And it's going to have tons of amenities from sporting fields, courts, sand volleyball, a resort style pool, walking and biking trails, catch and release pond. There's tons of amenities here. And then my 60 foots for the starting price are going to be from $430 to about $490. And the square footage is going to be ranging from about 1,900 to about 2,700 square feet. And then my 70s are going to be ranging from like about 2,300 to about almost 3,900 square feet. And the price point is going to be like $530 to $660 right now.
Awesome, man. I first of all, Gene's community in Sonoma is one of my favorite communities on this side of the Metroplex. I've had a few people that have built in there, bought in there. We've got a couple of contracts working right now in that neighborhood. I think Rockwall to me is one of those hidden things that I don't think people realize is out there. And once more people realize it, I think people will continue to flock this direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know everybody wants to be to the north, but man, especially like those lower tax rates, it makes your money go a little bit further. So, Gene, you've sold new construction for a while. You've been with a couple different builders. We won't ask you about your previous experiences because you love where you're at now.
I love Highland, yeah.
Tell me, let's talk through this. I always love to ask, like, as people come into your model and you're working with clients, give me something you wish somebody knew. Like, if you're like, man, if I could just get people to understand this thing, life would be so much better for everybody.
Yeah, I think the market 2 to 4 years back, based on the materials and labor shortages from COVID, all the way up until about just of last year, I feel like that materials and labor shortage has caused this stigma with buyers to believe that their build time is going to be exceeding an 8 to 10 month time frame. And then it's going to put them in a dilemma based on interest rates or with, moving twice or just trying to get the ballpark of an idea of like, when are we actually going to be in our home? And so the number one thing that I feel like a lot of people come into contact with me about is, hey, what's the build time like? And I say, hey, we're going to be anywhere from right now, currently from December to February timeframe. And their eyes light up and they're like, oh, wow, I thought it was going to be like sometime next year in summer. With Highland and with our materials and labor, and we're a private builder, we have direct connections with our materials and labor trades to ensure that we have a direct streamlined process. And so we have cut our build time since that materials and labor timeframe to about 220, 230 days to about 165 to 185 days. So that will put you from the time frame that we get the permits and plans and on the ground up and running for that foundation, just about a 5 to 6 month time frame with the window.
Yeah. Okay. So you brought up an interesting point. So I want to ask this question. So you mentioned that Highland is a privately held builder, which means they're not publicly traded. Megan, you came from a privately held builder as well, not publicly traded, correct? But y'all both have experience with publicly traded, like New York Stock Exchange builders. And we don't have to mention names. We don't have to talk about that. But I would love for y'all to tell me and tell our people, like, let's talk about the differences in those two things, like working like from a client perspective of like, hey, this is a private company versus a publicly traded company. Do you feel like there's a difference in that? Do you feel like quality maybe changes in a different direction? Like, talk me through some of those things, either of you, both of you, from y'all's experience, because I think that would be helpful.
So I actually, believe it or not, at the time that I've worked at the companies, have only worked for private.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, my first builder that I was at, they weren't public. They went publicly traded like right as I was leaving. So that's the only experience I've ever had. And I do feel like management has more freedom to make decisions that are the right call and not necessarily what's right for the bottom line. And I think that human aspect to the business is something that I really enjoy working with, because sometimes you do have to look at the circumstance and look at the people involved and make decisions based off of what the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
How about you, Gene?
Yeah. So my builder, they were publicly traded and a corporate builder and nationally recognized. And so I would definitely say that aspect in that ballpark. I just feel like from Highland's perspective, we're all about the buyer, and we ensure that it is a quality, luxury, value first, and based on integrity of the company, and then also for the buyer standpoint. I've been in positions before where I couldn't sleep due to just certain stresses that were going on that I could not control, that were out of my hands. Here at Highland, there's not a sleepless night, because I know with my team, based on communication, the customer service with my assistants and associates, and then from my builder standpoint, and even beyond that with the warranty team, I just know for sure that I don't get missed calls or calls just from buyers in general talking about this isn't fixed, where's the communication at? Because I feel like we have streamlined the process to ensure that all communication is met. And it's not a bragging right from Highland's perspective, but with McSam Awards, we just won 10 times People's Choice Builder of the Year. And then based on the customer service, I know we have a direct link with our Highland Homes website, that if you punch out a warranty request, we'll have that answer back within 24 to 48 hours. And so we have won JD Powers based on our customer service and the warranty. And we don't outsource warranty to another company. It stays in-house with previous builders. And so I just feel with that process where I was before and here, and that was the whole reason why I came here, was the transitioning of, I wanted my buyers to be well kept and taken care of, because I know with me, the communication and customer service was always there. It was just more about, I needed a company that could back me and a product line that I could stand behind.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that makes the biggest difference. I mean, we've talked before, and I've told, customers and clients before, Highland is never going to be the cheapest option in a neighborhood. Right. And there are other builders that are the same way in terms of quality. They're just not going to be. That's not their business model. But their business model is caring and for their people. And I think the builders that do a good job of empowering their employees to do what they're good at are the ones that win. And I've seen time and time again, whether it's with Gene or it's other, Highland counselors or builders, like when something happens and like they just have the authority to be like, no, this is what we're like. It's that Ruth Chris kind of things, like, hey, you have the ability to fix a problem. Right. I mean, within reason, right? We're not talking 50, 60,000, but like a reasonable problem when we look at that and they're like, oh, we don't have to, circumvent all of these things. That's where the value is found, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. I think when you know that your management has the same ethos as you, and you know that they're going to do the right thing, and kind of the what you have to work with in your back pocket, it makes it easy to confidently say like, oh yeah, I know I can get this taken care of.
Yeah. And I would say that's, in my experience, that's the struggle with some, not all, but with some publicly traded builders, is they're so concerned about making shareholders happy that you end up getting like, it's like, hey, we have to finish all of these products. We have to get all of these homes done. We have to more, in some ways, cut corners that maybe we shouldn't do. Maybe we have to scale back on what we're putting in our homes because we need to up our profit margins, versus like these privately traded builder or privately held builders. I don't know that is as big of a piece for them.
Yeah, I would attest to the fact that the autonomy is the big word that I've been thrown around, and the autonomy of running my own business and having and knowing exactly what I can and cannot do and stretch my hand out to that. But the number one thing that my boss has said to me about a buyer is that we do right by the buyer. And that was something I was unheard of. And, if something was said, it's not a verbal agreement or anything like that. But at the same time frame, like, we want to ensure that if I slipped up and said something was standard, we want to honor that. And, I've stated that to my boss and said, hey man, I dropped the ball here. And I need to honor that if we can. And he's like, if you feel like we need to do that, absolutely. And so it doesn't happen a lot, where in the sense of I drop the ball a lot, and I'm not saying I'm a perfectionist or anything like that, but, being in this company, it's really helped out with understanding of the respect value from the sales council position to my management team, to where they don't hold us at a pinnacle, like where we're at the top of the pyramid, but they really appreciate the sales because that's the driving force of our company here. And in other terms, it was the opposite where, your shareholders and then the sales will be at the bottom of the totem pole. And so I feel like here the respect is earned because they know what we do, and nobody would be able to have a job if sales weren't the striking force to be able to push the full throttle on that.
Right. And again, it allows y'all, like you said, to do right by people and to care about people, which is a huge thing. And I think, again, that goes to the importance of, and Megan and I have talked about this before, of like having a good relationship when you're trying to build, like having that salesperson and your realtor, like they're all on the same team. Everybody is pushing toward the ultimate goal of getting you into that house, whether it's an inventory home, whether it's a ground up build, like everybody's on the same team. And so there's got to be this balancing act. And Jean knows this because we've done deals together. Megan knows this because we did deals together. Like when she was on the other side, there's got to be this balancing act of like, hey, I want to be firm but fair. Right. Like, and so I hear stories all the time of all these other like realtors or buyers that like want to go in and strong arm every single deal and just make life difficult. Megan's smiling because y'all could both probably tell me stories of that. And it's like that's not the space, right? The space is, hey, again, we're all trying to get a win, and the goal is to get the buyer into a home. And so our job on Megan and my job on our side of the table is to come in and not be adversarial, but to put this in a position to where the buyer can make the best decision possible.
Yeah. And Jean, I don't know if you also feel this way, but I know when I was on your side of the table, sometimes I felt like they didn't really know me. They didn't really trust me as much as they would later in the process. But early on, when you're trying to tell them, hey, this is normal, this is to be expected, this is how it goes. Sometimes they're like, well, you're just saying that, right? Because you work for the builder. Yeah. So I think it is nice to have, when you have a good realtor partner who can back that up and say, yeah, that is a normal thing. That's how it goes. And it's always nice to have that back and forth with people that they do trust.
Yeah, I think piggybacking back to that first question too is like that kind of like stigma. I wish you want people to know. There is a reel that I stumbled upon from a realtor standpoint that said, hey, they went out to the job site, their buyers did, without the realtor representation. I have never operated like that, where in the sense of, the builder and realtor relationship, if a buyer comes out and they're seeing the representative, that feed and that reel that realtor posted was, hey, that they couldn't get on to the sales agreement because they weren't out there for the first time. If a buyer comes in, those are one of my top questions I'm asking. Who are you represented by? What are you looking for? What's your budget? Questions that I need to know and understand, because, if I have a guy that's coming in and they're working with Zach, I have a special relationship with Zach, so I can be able to call him and say, hey, this is the feedback and everything like that. But if it's somebody I've never done business with, I feel like I can go back to what you're saying, Megan, is that, the trust is not there. And, I try to bring up not bragging rights of like the Instagram or the social media, but it's more about, hey, I'm here for the buyer and the realtor, and we're all trying to get to the same page of getting you across the table and getting into your home. And, we're not here to cut corners, cheapskate you, or, feel like you're being, slid underneath the rug or anything like that, because that's not the vibe here. We want to ensure that it's a clean process and it's a confident and cool decision-making process, because if you're making a decision out of insecurity, I feel like you're going to stumble upon your home or stumble upon the home buying process in fret, worry, anger, or just stress loaded. And I don't want that. And it needs to be not streamlined, but it needs to be at the same time frame, just a clean process to make it to where you feel comfortable with it and confident about the decision that you're making, because it is a big decision.
Oh, it's a massive decision. And again, there's gonna be hiccups, right? Whether it's a 30-day close or it's a 6-month close, like there's always going to be hiccups. There's always going to be imperfections. And if I've said it once, I'll say it again. It's not when something goes wrong, it's if, and it's how they respond, right? It's how the salesperson reacts in that moment. It's how management reacts. It's how the builder reacts, because something is going to go wrong. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's building it or price point. We want people to respond in the correct manner and to own it And even if they can't fix it, because sometimes things just can't be fixed, but at least to own it and to be in that space where it's like, okay, we hear you, because I think a lot of times people just need to be heard, right?
Yeah.
We hear you and we want to do what we can to fix it. There's no promises, but we're going to do what we can.
Yeah. I think going back to what my management team says to me all the time, telling is selling, and or selling is telling kind of vibe. And I don't want that vibe to ever be, conveyed over to the buyer, the realtor representation and such like that. But, I've been through, and Megan, as well too, number of homes, construction sites, it's a beautiful home at the end. It's never beautiful during the process. And so, people always ask questions, especially when I'm doing my reels for my construction updates. That's the number one thing too, is like, we put coverings on the carpet, and then we lay the tarping down, the covers for the floors as well too. We ensure it's a clean build, but there's just miscellaneous things, people always bring up.
It's a job site.
It's a job site. And it's like, that at the end of the time frame of when we get to the home, after it's being completed, when it's turnkey ready to go, that's when it's a beautiful home. But it's like that relationship is needing to be, and the trust is needed to be there, where I'm used to it. So when buyers, message me, is like, what's going on with this? It's like, well, yeah, it's, we're used to it. So it's like where you need to approach that communication, what you were saying, Zach, of this is normal, and kind of conveying that of like, it's just typically the norm. So, yeah.
So Gene, you said you weren't going to brag on your social media. I'll do it for you. You're killing it.
Thank you. I try.
I wanted to ask, like, what made you want to get into doing social media marketing for your business?
So when I was at my former builder, kind of give you a background really fast. So I was an assistant for 6 months at a different builder. And then I went to another builder where that was my primary stay at. My bread and butter were different forms of marketing, where it was just mass email or mass text. When I went through my interview process with Highland, they told me that we just don't do that here. And so I knew that once upon a time in my last builder, I had a social media page, but when I got into the different aspect of the communication with marketing, that just took off for me to where I didn't really need it. And so I kind of put it on the back burner, deactivated it and everything like that. And so when I started to back up, I knew that was going to be my main form of marketing. But there was a lot of realtors I did not know, because they knew me from my last builder. And I wanted to branch out and kind of get my name out there. And so the niche for new home sales or new home construction, there was some out there that you could see and be like, oh yeah, I know that guy, Chris from Devonshire and stuff like that with Perry. And so, but I wanted to make a huge name and not sitting there bragging about it, but at the same time frame, making sure that I can get my name out there. Yep. And because this is my franchise, everywhere I go with Highland, it's my specific franchise. And so I want to ensure that if it's not just my community, but if it's based on Highland Homes in general, if a realtor's contacting me and saying, hey, I want something in this, do you know where this is at? Let me reach out to so-and-so to be able to get that out. So my main form of marketing changed when I got here, and I wanted to get more in depth into the social media, because that's today's age. My bosses told me that back in the day, people used to look at Better Homes and Gardens magazines, and they would be looking through like a realtor ad, and it's like, oh, this house is available. Or you go to Tom Thumb and you see, a realtor ad that's posted on like a grocery cart, or just the old school.
I'm always so curious about those. Like, if you ever called a realtor because their face was on your grocery cart, let me know, because I just
and not bashing that, but
no. I'm not bashing it at all. I'm just super curious if anybody's ever hired somebody from a Kroger shopping cart.
And you're right, Gene. Like, there aren't a lot of builder reps out there doing it. I think a lot of people who work for a builder depend on the builder's marketing team to drive leads.
And let's be honest, those are usually not very good.
So I know with my online sales team, we do an impeccable job at making sure. But that's the thing, is like, with me at Highland, like I'm completely responsible for my business. And, I don't want to be 2 months in and I have a sell, because I was just sitting here, and I get really antsy, and I can't just twiddle my thumbs and just like, when's someone going to come through the door? Because I was in door-to-door sales, and I knew you had to go out there and get it. And here it's just a different aspect of, how can I drive people here? Granted, they're going to come by the model and see it because of Highland and such like that. But there's got to be some form of other marketing, different avenues, whether if it's MLS or, sending a quick text to a buyer and saying, or a realtor and saying, hey, we have this available. But I knew from the new home sales game that, the drones, the gimbals of the world, how can I broadcast a home and get it out there quick? And that was the solution, was social media. And so it was a hard process to start, because when I got to my first community, it wasn't like I was selling in like Windsong Ranch or Mustang Lakes or anything like that, or Montera and Fate. It was really hard to get the name out there because, one, people were, where's Worth City at? Where's Creekshaw at? And then what's the product line that we have out there? And so it was a harder process. And so now, if it was 2 years ago and I was doing what I was doing 2 years ago, I would be struggling where I'm at right now, because I would be doing the same form of marketing, and that wasn't clicking there. Yeah. And now I'm doing the creative marketing with the transitions and throwing myself all over the place, because it's the hook that's capturing people's attention. And so I have a reel currently going viral right now that, it's the most simplest idea, and it's just me showing the home, but I've added a hook to it now, instead of just putting the home out there and saying, hey, home is priced from whatever. And so now these transitions are basically breaking it down to where they could be able to grab and gather the attention of the audience and get them engaged.
Well, and that's what I'll say too. And we'll put Gene's Instagram down in the description of this. But here's what I'll say. Gene is a goof on social. Like if you, but here's the thing. Gene's a goof in real life. Like,
absolutely.
And I think that's what I love. Like, and again, I'm so like, the hill that I'm willing to die on is like the authenticity hill. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I want people to feel like when they have that interaction, it's like, oh, the person I saw on camera is the person that showed up to meet me at the model. And the person that's the same person that walked me through this entire process. So I think it's such a big deal. When we're caring about people, like when we show up authentically, I think that's what makes the biggest difference. And so, there have been times I've walked in and I'm like, Gene, what are you doing? And he's like throwing himself off the stairs.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, what? I don't even know what's going on. But I also will say, in a full suit, like Gene is always going to have a suit on, and I'm going to be in shorts and t-shirts. And it's just like, it works. And that's what you're going to get. Right. But it's interesting because you've kind of pivoted on that, and I want to talk about this. And it's probably a would you rather, and let's talk about both. Would you rather have a ton of inventory to sell, or would you rather be selling builds? Because like right now, you're in a space where y'all are opening a new phase and you have build opportunities without a ton of inventory that could move into quickly.
I think I thrive on builds. I don't know why, but I do a really good job at visualizing the home site. Yeah. And now, there's different matters. Like if you physically, we need to get in the car and drive over to a different community and such like that. But I've been in both cases to where I've had a ton of inventory on the ground and then a ton of build job opportunities being here. And I thrive in both, but I feel like I prefer builds. It's just more kind of visualizing the home site with them, kind of visualizing the home in first of like, look at the birchwood, it's got the vaulted ceilings and stuff like that. And then I do a weird way of the marketing where I do videos and on my YouTube channel, and I do the reels, and I kind of showcase of like the construction time frame of like from start to finish. And that's another reason why too that I like building, is because the construction update game, like I used to just take pictures and I would just send them on every Monday. It's like, hey, it's stage 6 today, guys, yada yada yada. We just got sheetrock done, blah 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 blah. And it was just a picture. And I was like, there's something missing there. And there's a void that can be filled in the new homes construction game. And so I experienced my first closing where I did from the start to finish of, hey, this is what process is supposed to be like, where the construction updates. And so when I first flew a drone around and started doing the updates and then did the little mini reels on the inside, I love build jobs because of that. And it really helps me help the buyer of identifying, and other buyers can be able to reciprocate that exact same feedback and say, oh my gosh, that's what that is. And they can say, I get that vibe of the birchwood floor plan, and they can be able to interact with that and say, I want to buy that floor plan. And then also it's cool because the construction updates that I do weekly, I'm not bragging and I'm being very modest about that, but no one's doing that. And I really, really, really take that to a pride position of taken great pride in that to ensure that my communication, like you're not going to get another experience anywhere else, because me personally, I want to put in the effort. And people always ask, like, where do you find the time to do it? I find the time to do it because
You make it
these
a priority.
people are buying a Highland home. And I know with my first 2 Highlands, it was an experience. And that was the reason why I wanted to ensure. And that's why I'm always in the suit. And that's why I'm always making sure that my standard of excellence is just on another level.
Yeah. Megan, what about you? What did you what did you prefer on that side? And what do you prefer now? Like, you prefer building or you prefer having tons of inventory?
So from the builder rep side, I'm with Jean. I liked building from the ground up.
Really?
I found that it's easier to find the right fit for somebody when you can custom tailor it to exactly what they're looking for.
Specificity, yeah.
Yeah. If I only have inventory and they're looking for something specific that I don't have available in my current inventory, then it's like, well, sorry. Like, I don't have it.
Right.
And go to another builder, which is
Yeah.
one reason why I'm happy to be a realtor now, because I can take you to the other builders.
Yeah.
But I found that I sold more and I enjoyed the process of actually taking people through the whole build and custom tailoring it to what they were looking for.
Yeah. That just happened this past weekend where someone came in. They looked at my inventory home, and it's something I could not change anything because we were already locked and loaded and ready to go for the permits. The birchwood was at a certain price point and they couldn't do it. They didn't fit the needs of their budget. And so I was like, what if we kind of tailored it back, because I made the home turnkey ready for the inventory. And so we turned it back and we dialed the notch back and said, hey, we start from this, and we created that floor plan for them, but in their budget. And so that's where I think I kind of like play off the trick of the trade of, if it's not the inventory home, but I can pivot from inventory home to a build job. That's where, the selling aspect will come into play of like, these are the tactics that we can use, and we can be able to put you on a build job, and that will be much more accessible for you and your budget.
Yeah. Now I will say that specs are easier. Like
and
the process of doing from contract to close on a spec is way easier.
Right.
But I'm with you.
I like having the ability to have balance of both. Like I want to have clients that are building for the long term, but also I want to have people that are like, because sometimes you just need something like, hey, your job is transitioning and you've got to be somewhere in 60 days. So having, and what I appreciate about that is like, I want to be able to still give them a quality experience and a quality home, even if it's not, hey, we're going to take 6 months to build this house. Right. And so when there is inventory available, that's always the big feeling for me is like, hey, where can we find the quality and where can we get the best incentives? Because usually on those inventory things, we've talked about it. Those are where you find the winning combinations, right? So, all right, Gene, I'm gonna ask you. Let's put it on the hot spot for a second. I don't want to get you fired. So if Dave is watching this, he might, and
he might watch it. Yeah, he might watch it.
I'm not trying to get you fired, but give us some tips on like things that you're like if that people should know that you might get into a little bit of trouble for telling us. Like not a lot of
builders don't want you to know.
Yeah. What's your what the inside scoop? Like, we're not going to inside trade on this, but give me some inside tips here. That's what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, I think piggybacking on what you just said, you're going to get the best opportunity on an inventory home because there's going to be much more incentive on a home site that's ready to move out instead of on a build job. Now that doesn't say in case in part to a house in a new community that just started up with a new phase, because it can play two in hand in hand. So if I was in a position to where I had, final opportunities, and then I was in a new community with a new phase with all brand new lots, I think it just goes hand in hand. And so it's kind of a catch-22 of like, which one's better. But I do believe that if you had an inventory home site, like for instance, right now, the inventory with the interest rates are high right now. And so inventory right now, we're pushing a special incentivized rate. And so that's something that you can definitely take advantage of. And so if it was on a build job in comparison to that, it's all about the specificity of the buyer and what's important to them. And so when they're coming in, they're like, I want to tailor my house as so-and-so. Okay, well, maybe an inventory home won't work out. But if someone's coming in, they're like, hey, I'm budget sensitive and I'm trying to make sure that I stay within a certain budget, then maybe an inventory home will work. And so it just all plays hand in hand. But I feel like in the sense of inventory homes, piggybacking off of that, you're going to get the best bang for your buck based on the incentive for the interest rate.
And the one that goes even further, right? And y'all are both agree, not just the inventory, but the inventory bust, like the build job that y'all had that somebody couldn't close on, that you got back and you weren't expecting to get back. Like if somebody finds out that, they might be in a really good position, right? Just blink twice if you agree, Gene.
It's all dependent on when the time frame of it can close. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good. Gene, what is your favorite quality about Highland Home?
I made a video about this and I didn't post it, but at the end of it, it was everybody's going to get rickrolled, but I did not post it yet. But I said what the greatest standard feature of Highland is, and then I basically went into the rickroll and such. But my favorite thing about Highland is that the amount of storage space and the amount of windows, natural light, and the tall ceilings. When I closed on my Davenport home, I felt like that experience when I walked in. It was raining just a little bit, and I walked in, and I'm selling from a builder that had smaller windows, smaller ceilings, and such like that. And I walked in, and the windows, I just felt like I was in a movie. And I feel like Highland does a really great job with keeping the innovation of our floor plans and staying in tune with the audience. And we don't just say it just to say it and keep the same floor plans of like, hey, the Canterbury floor plan, and we're still doing the same floor plan. We're constantly innovating. I feel like with Gonzalo and our architectural team and Gene Ann, they do a really good job at creating new stuff. Like they just created 26 new floor plans last year and tons of different elevations. And they brought out the gallery collection as well too. And with our one stories that we had previously, they were like flat ceilings, but they were tall. But now we have a brand new series of product line that has vaulted ceilings in a one story. Fantastic. And it's more of like, kind of like that farmhouse modern vibe. But I feel like with Highland's greatest feature is just continuously, moving the needle of making sure that we're staying innovative in the floor plan game and the architectural side of things.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
Awesome. Anything else that you want to add before we wrap up, Gene?
Come by your beautiful Highland home at Sonoma Verde. We have some great incentives right now on build jobs. So they're not inventory homes. We're out of them all completely, but we have 70-foot lots that back up to all Greenbelt, and then the same thing for 60s as well. And so you can get a really good product line for a great school district, great tax rate on a big lot.
Awesome. Gene, thanks for hanging out with us today, man.
Of course, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, this wraps us up for today. As always, if you need assistance, you need help, Megan and I are here to help. Megan's covering the north part of the Metroplex. I'm covering more of the east and the south. If we can help you in any way, or you want to go see Gene, please do that. We'll see you guys in our next video. Thanks for hanging out. Bye, Megan. Bye, Gene.
Thanks so much.